Welcome to Sauk Valley Media's Pigskin Primer for Week 9 of the high school football season. I'm Sports Editor Dan Waisner alongside Assistant Sports Editor Christopher Heimerman, and we're coming to you from the Harbor in Amboy side of this week's game of the week between the Amboy Clippers and the Newman Comets. The only thing at stake there is a Big Rivers crown. If Newman wins, they get it all by themselves. If Amboy can knock off the Comets, it'll be a two-way tie. Plenty on the line, but that's just one of three games that's the scenario. Chris, before we go ahead, we'll look back at last week. You just got back from Dixon. Sterling and Dixon's long game ended up with Sterling winning 38-0.
Yeah, I actually just got back right now.
Yeah.
It was, you know what, it was a good game for Sterling ultimately. The Warriors got it together and put together a really nice second half, but Angel Sierra, our producer, he couldn't have put it better himself. Midway through that second quarter, he said, it feels like the game hasn't started yet. Some of that was sloppy play by the team. Some of it was, frankly, some not great officiating, and it really made for a very clunky first half. And I mean, that's why that game ended up going, deep into the night. But Sterling got it together. One of the games that you mentioned is so huge this Friday night is when they host Ottawa on Friday night, bringing in Michael Hermosillo and a very good Pirates team. And one of three big games, and obviously our game of the week, Newman Amboy, very much looking forward to it. But sticking with Sterling for a moment, hopefully they got it together just enough for it to parlay into this week's game in the regular season finale.
I mean, Week 9's ending with a bang. We've got three games where teams are going to be fighting for conference titles. We've got two teams playing in games where if they don't win, they don't make the playoffs. AFC's going to be playing against Milledgeville. AFC sitting at 4-4. They get that fifth win, they'll be playoff eligible. Then it's just a matter of playoff points. They're sitting at 34 right now. They should end up with 38, 39, somewhere in there. That should be enough to get them in. The other one would be BV. They have to play Morrison to try to get that fifth win. It's kind of weird because BV, I think, was 4-2 at one point. It looked like they were a lock for the playoffs.
Right.
And now, winning it in, but they've got to knock off a Morrison team that's, seems like it's starting to put things together a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. What better way to go out than the slate that we've got this Friday night? You send out the picks. You sent them out on Sunday night for all of our staff members to make our decisions and assign our confidence points. And I was able to make my picks, but I'm going back and revisiting it today in terms of confidence points because there are going to be a lot of competitive games this Friday night. On the drive over, I was talking about how that Milledgeville game, looks like a game that AFC should go in there and win, but it's in Milledgeville. And I mean, they managed to spring up and win a game that they probably shouldn't have won earlier this season, so they're going to be looking to ring the bell Friday night. What better way to go out with the high school football slate in terms of the regular season than what we've got on tap?
Well, and the other, we've talked about the Big Rivers title game.
Yeah.
We've got the NIB 12 West title game, and then the NUIC Northwest. I mean, EPC's controlling their own destiny. They're 8-0 overall, 7-0 in conference.
Mm-hmm.
They play Forreston, who has one loss. They lost to Lena Winslow. So
not chop liver.
No chop liver. So if Forreston can come in and have a big game against EPC, you'll have actually a three-way tie as long as Lee Win also wins. You could have three teams at 7-1 at the top of that conference at the end of the season. If EPC wins, they take it all by themselves. They head into two-way playoffs at 9-0. You're looking at a home playoff game, probably one of the top seeds also.
Yeah, absolutely. The Wildcats, one of those teams that really, early in the season, we were wondering what they were because they were scoring so many points on teams. But again, they were scoring that many points on teams they were supposed to do it against. When they beat Lena Winslow, it was like all bets were off for them, and they've taken full advantage of it. So, I love Friday nights, not just because of the game that I'm covering, but I love watching the Twitter roll, seeing things unfold, and retweeting that stuff. And it's really fun to be part of it, even if you aren't at those games. Thanks to the social media aspect, we kind of feel plugged into all games at all times.
Zeroing in on the game of the week here. Newman's coming off a win over Erie Prophetstown. Erie Prophetstown kept it close for a half.
Mm-hmm.
Newman started to kind of pull away a little in the second half. It was a good test for the Comets in Week 8. Week 9 should be more of the same.
Yeah, no love lost between these teams. I mean, again, the schedule makers knew what they were doing, and this one should be an absolute blast here at the Harbor. I really think that Newman hasn't shown a whole lot of weakness this season. Just, steady as she goes. I like them to come in here and find a way to win this football game, but you know, there's something about that X factor when you've got a couple teams that have a very special place in their heart for each other. You know, this game means absolutely everything to the Amboy Clippers. They're going to give Newman the fight of the season. And you know, who knows, in the long run, perhaps tripping up against St. Pete a couple weeks ago could actually be a blessing in disguise for the Clippers, showing their mortality and showing that they need to put together a perfect game in order to beat Newman. If they're less than perfect, Comets are going to win this game. I don't believe in perfection, personally. So I think the Comets are going to find a way to come here and win 20-12 to win an outright Big Rivers title.
Well, you look where Amboy really struggled against St. Pete. That was across the line of scrimmage. St. Pete had some big guys. They pushed Amboy around a little bit, and you don't really expect that out on an Amboy team. Amboy prides itself on being more physical than most teams, running the ball hard, but I think they only had, what, 20-some yards of rushing that game.
Yeah.
You know, Newman handled St. Pete's line that first week of the season. They won, I think it was 23-6, something like that. You know, if Amboy doesn't come ready to play physically across the line of scrimmage, it's going to be a long night for Amboy. I think they'll be better than what they were against St. Pete, but I do think Amboy wins this, but it'll probably be like 18-16.
So you're taking the Clippers?
No, I'm taking Newman.
Oh, you are taking Newman.
Newman, 18-16. I'm not sure if I said that right the first time. But what you've learned from this series, you know, a couple years ago, Newman beat Amboy by, I think it was 40 points in week 9. They turned around and played the next week in the playoffs, and I think that was a 10-7 football game. So,
yeah,
you know, you come up here, you play in Amboy, anything could happen.
I probably heard you wrong. It's windy. Yeah. You got the wind whistling in our ears and probably shaking Angel's camera right now, but like we were talking about, it's only appropriate at the harbor. We get a little shaky, getting our sea legs.
So,
yar.
Don't forget to check out Saturday morning. There'll be highlights from the Newman Amboy game at SaukValley.com. I will send it back to the boys in the office who will be talking about some of the other big games this week.
This is Ty Reynolds, sports reporter at Sauk Valley Media, previewing this weekend's game between Streator and Dixon at AC Bowers Field in Dixon. It's the final game for each team. Both teams are 0-8 on the season and 0-4 in Northern Illinois Big 12 West play. Streator is led by runner Drew Muntz, who has almost 800 yards and 4 touchdowns. He's averaging 6 yards per carry. He also has one of 3 receivers with at least 80 receiving yards. Streator's main attack is on the ground, but quarterback Steven Truchon has thrown for 410 yards and 3 touchdowns as well, so they can move it through the air if necessary. Dixon is the opposite. They move the ball through the air almost exclusively. Quarterback J.D. Geeson has 1,170 passing yards and 10 touchdowns. He's also the team's leading rusher with 220 yards and 2 scores. He has 3 receivers who have all caught at least 24 passes for at least 300 yards. Dixon moves the ball exclusively through the air. The key for this game will be, I believe, which defense can slow down the opposing offense. In this case, I believe if it turns into a shootout, I believe Dixon will have the advantage. Both teams have struggled in Northern Illinois Big 12 play, losing by consistent margins to each team. I believe Dixon will come out on top in this one. I believe they will win 42-41.
This is Brian Weidman. I am a sports reporter for Sauk Valley Media, and I will be talking about the Ottawa at Sterling football game Friday night, 7:30 at Roscoe Weed Stadium in Sterling. It is for all the marbles in the Northern Illinois Big 12 West. Both teams enter the game with 4-0 records. Ottawa has probably the best offensive player, or best player in the conference, and a senior fullback, Michael Hermosillo. He has 130 carries this year, 1,400 yards, 23 touchdowns. He has been a force all season. Though last week, LaSalle Peru slowed him down. He had less than 100 yards and no touchdowns. So that's a very good blueprint for Sterling to follow if they can manage to slow him down. That will be the key to the game, slowing down Hermosillo. If Sterling can do that, they'll have a very good chance to win. If not, then Ottawa is probably going to be able to pull away and win the conference championship. Sterling won the conference last year, 5-0 record. Sterling, Ottawa, and Geneseo shared the conference championship in 2010. They were all 4-1. I predict this year that Sterling will be able to hold serve on their home field. It will be a close game, though. I'm predicting a 21-14 victory for the Warriors.
Hey everybody, this is Sauk Valley Media sports reporter Larry Brennan taking a look at the regular season finale between Bureau Valley and Morrison in the Big Rivers. Bureau Valley comes in 4-4, Morrison at 5-3. A big game for both teams, playoff-wise. At 7:30 Friday at Bud Coalfield in Morrison. BV comes in averaging about 23 points a game, allowing about 25 a game. Morrison comes in averaging just under 19 points a game. They're only allowing less than 12 points a game. Teams kind of heading in different directions here the last few weeks. BV was 4-2 until a couple of losses here in the last few weeks, a couple blowout losses, 38-13 to Fulton and 48-13 last week to Amboy. Morrison was sitting at 3-3 until beating Riverdale 25-6 in week 7 and winning at Fulton 18-6 last week. Bureau Valley has been without star quarterback Tyler Barnes at least last week. In his stead, Parker Newhelfen was quarterback, and Newhelfen's been kind of a bit of a dual threat. He's got 339 yards rushing and 212 receiving. Barnes had 847 yards passing and 293 yards rushing on the season. Their leading receiver is Jake Smith in terms of yardage with 229. And Christian Connick is their leading rusher with 428 yards. Danny Willis continues to lead the way for Morrison offensively. He's over 1,000 yards total now with 750 rushing and 320 receiving. And Morrison quarterback Matt Wilkins has 595 yards passing on the season. I think Morrison is going to continue to roll, and I'll take them to win this ball game 26-14 this week.